Hello and welcome to another edition of Breakfast Club, where we explain our weekend fixture plans and look ahead to the coming game weeks. Beyond that, there's also a wild card to finalise too. Today I'm joined by David. David, welcome. How are you?
Yeah, a little bit better than I was a week ago. I'm still not back to 100% following my operation, but good enough to sit down and get back to some FPL. It'll probably distract me. So, yeah, glad to be back, sort of.
So yellow flagged, and at some point
Yes,
a man may come on with a magic sponge. But
that's
you're
true.
here with us.
Or it might be my wife.
Yeah,
Might have to turn off for that.
with a magic sponge. We're also joined by 2014-15 FPL winner, Simon March. Simon, how are you?
I'm well, thanks, Jay. Yeah, good to be back. Good to have FPL back.
Yeah, it's good. It's been a long, we always say after an international break, it's been a long international break. I've been okay with it. I've been wildcarding, and I've been at peace with it, I think. Quite tranquil. But I have, can be quite a stressful time for people. But what we're going to do is at 11:30, we're going to give our reaction to the lunchtime team sheets. As I said, there's my wildcard to reveal. There's David and his magic bean-filled midfield, plus someone quite good up top. And also we've got a former champions plan. So Simon, let's take a look at your team. What I'm going to do is put it up on the screen. I'm just going to read it out for the benefit of those listening to the podcast version. So you have Heaton in goal, you have Luca Dean, you have Alexander-Arnold and Lundstram in defence. You've got a 3-4-3 and you've got Sterling, Salah, Sigurdsson and Mount in midfield, Pukki, Haller and Callum Wilson up top, and on your bench Button, Dendoncker, Diop and Kelly. So looking at your team, okay, so there's a couple of things that'd be interesting to mention. One is just basic, forget players, just formation. Why have you opted for 3-4-3? Why is your team is a 3-4-3 team, not just for this week. Why have you opted for that?
So I've had it since pre-season. I've gone 3-4-3. I don't have necessarily an attachment to it as a formation. It's just when I was putting the team together, the extra money that I could spend in midfield didn't really get me anybody that I particularly wanted, and so I ended up with a 3-4-3. Partly, I just really liked the look of Haller, and even though it didn't have an enormous amount to go on, I ended up just being sort of quite committed to him, and I think that Callum Wilson is another player that I've had from the start. As we were just saying, literally the most consistent player. 5 points every game week this season. I really like him. I know he's not a very popular pick, but I think he's quite a good one. Pukki came in just before he stopped scoring, so pleased with that.
Yeah, I think that I mentioned before we came on air how much I liked the Callum Wilson pick, even though I have just dumped him on my wildcard team, and I've done that because it's quite an awkward price, but I am going to regret it. I know I'm going to regret it because he's come down in price. So he's starting to get a bit more realistic. We know that he's capable of scoring hat-tricks and braces. And as you said, he's been really consistent. He hasn't really done too much wrong. It's just we sort of want more from him. But Bournemouth have got a great run of fixtures coming up. I like that, but it's partly the psychology of it. I like it because I've got rid of him. And so I'm full of regret there as well.
That's one of the things, that I like about him is the fact that, he gets goals and assists. Yeah. And pretty much everybody that I've chosen has multiple ways of scoring. They all, even down to Heaton, gets lots of save points as well as the odd clean sheet. And that's something that I really sort of tried to go for. I've got a lot of set piece takers in there as well.
Yeah.
So I'm reasonably happy with it at the moment.
Yeah, no, as you were saying, you're about 200,000th or so in the world, which is ranking wise at this stage of the season is pretty good. So nicely set up. David, what do you think of Simon's team there? I guess particularly because you've got a very different midfield. So what do you think of his quite a potent midfield there?
Yeah, I like the midfield. I mean, we'll come on to why mine looks so terrible shortly. It's mainly because I'm going to wildcard next week, or rather later today. But yeah, that's the kind of midfield I'm looking for. I mean, I guess I'm going to sound like a broken record, and perhaps maybe it's something that you mentioned a lot as well, Joe, but there's a reason for it. Is price points, I think, are great in this team because there's so much flexibility.
Yeah.
There's not really, when you've got a setup like that in that midfield, when you've got the two, the Salah and Sterling, I think, are essential. And then Sigurdsson means that, if you need to get to De Bruyne at some point, then it's not too hard. Mason Mount's in a nice price point if he gets an injury. Daniel James is in there, Manuel Lanzini as well. So they're good options, and you've always got an extra strategy. So yeah, that's sort of the setup I'd quite like to have in my wild card, which is why I've kind of bent my team out of shape this week to give myself even more reason to go for it. So yeah, okay. It's very nice.
You've torn it up. But hopefully you'll be throwing it away, but in style for the goals.
Yeah, it should be in the bin. My team deserves to be in the bin this week.
We'll come to that later. So Simon, the other main thing I'm looking at your team is that you've got the captaincy on Salah. Now, yesterday we heard the news from the Norwich camp that they don't have any defenders. Their manager was almost saying that he was in tears, but in a comic way about how he hasn't got anyone. And of course they're playing Man City. A lot of people have switched to Sterling. A lot of people are very keen on Aguero for the captaincy there. What's your rationale for Salah? Is it still... we've got 8 minutes to go before deadline, so are you tempted?
Yeah, definitely tempted by Sterling, especially after the news yesterday. I think it's definitely a good point. I think that Norwich probably will get smashed by City. I think sometimes just in FPL, you have to make a choice and just stick with it. And this is one of those weeks. It does feel like a 50-50 call, which frequently I'm on the wrong side of. So yeah, hopefully this will be different. But I think, there's that old adage, if in doubt, go with the home player, which is what I've done. I think there is also the issue that Sterling has played twice over the international break. And so there's a possibility of him being benched. Yeah, it's a small one probably, but it's still there. I think if I had Aguero, I would probably lean towards Aguero, because I don't think that he has quite the same rotation risk at the moment. Having been rested himself. But yeah, at the moment, sticking with Salah, it's a bad one because it's the early kickoff as well. Yeah. So if I get it wrong, then I've got the whole weekend to kick myself about it, or at least until later on this evening when City play. But yeah, at the moment it's Salah, and I'm sticking with it.
I must admit, I know what you mean about those early kickoffs, but every time I've gone for an early kickoff captain, Van Persie, I remember in the past, and of course Salah as well. I think his Bournemouth game was a lunchtime kick. Yeah,
I think he had like 70 points at 2 o'clock. It was great.
I don't know about the ins and outs of players, whether they favour particular times of the day or not, but I seem to remember Salah being quite good at being a lunchtime kind of guy. So I wouldn't worry about that too much as well. I'm just going to put up my we talked a bit on the Scoutcast this week about data, and I've updated my goals imminent table to have a greater focus really on expected stats. Lots of people talking about them. Just wanted to see, and it's actually come up with loads of midfielders. So I just wanted to say that because you've got this midfield with a sort of price points as well. You've got a flexible midfield there. So I'm just going to read this lot out here and just see if anyone tickles your fancy, perhaps in the coming game weeks as well. You've got Maddison at top there. He due a goal soon. Pepe for Arsenal. Good, the fixtures to back it up. Barkley at Chelsea. De Bruyne, more attacking points to come from him. Bernardo Silva, when he can get on the pitch, he can do well. He'd scored last time as a substitute. And Tielemans at Leicester as well. Out of those names I mentioned, I don't know whether this might trigger anything for your plans going forwards. Because of course Leicester's fixtures do improve in a few game weeks. Arsenal's improve from this weekend onwards, and we will know about De Bruyne as well. Do any of those figure in your plans?
Yeah, I think for the reasons that you said, Pepe's really interesting. Maddison is someone that I've definitely had my eye on, partly because he fits into this kind of ethos that I have about having players that have multiple ways of scoring. He's on all the set pieces, and he gets goals himself. De Bruyne, I think, is the obvious one. He's the one that I kind of look at my team and wish that I had him in. He's probably my favourite FPL player. just because I mean he is so complete. He does absolutely everything. He's brilliant. The thing that I'm banking on by not having him is the hope really that two players combined outscore him, over the period that I have them. So that's why I've stayed away from him at the moment. I do think that he's a brilliant option. I think the question around him probably is, are you going to captain him when you've got someone like Sterling, Salah, Aguero in your team? Possibly not. In which case, it removes a little bit of the fear factor associated with him. But yeah, he's definitely the one that if I had unlimited funds, I would definitely go for first.
I mean, that's an interesting segue. I'm just going to put my wildcarded team up just before we get to 11:30, in case anyone's foolish enough to copy it. Because it's an interesting segue about what you're talking about De Bruyne. He is one of the main players in my wildcarded team. I have, and I've also looked at Leicester, but I haven't gone for those mentioned. But I have got my eye on the likes of Maddison. I've got Soyuncu there on my bench, kind of ready for game week 9. Simon? What do you think about Leicester assets? The likes of Maddison, Vardy, Tielemans. Have you got half an eye on game week 9 and beyond, looking at for them?
Yeah, I mean, I had Perez for first 2 or 3 game weeks, and he was a big disappointment. But looking at the team, Maddison seemed to be the one to have from that midfield. Obviously that could change. But Vardy is typically reliable, to score points over the season. And even if I had Vardy now, I wouldn't be too worried because they have got a really tough run of fixtures. But as is often said, Leicester seem to, particularly Vardy, seem to up their game for those tougher fixtures, or it suits their way of playing. The historically counter-attacking style, slightly different now, but they seem to do well in those games. I think when the fixtures ease up, then I'll definitely be looking more closely at Leicester.
David as well, because you're going to be wildcarding soon. Are Leicester in your plans? And I'm flagging them up because I quite like on these videos and podcasts to think a bit more further ahead and being a bit more strategic about these things. And we like fixture blocks, and Leicester certainly have them coming up. But yeah, any of their assets going to figure on your wildcard team, do you think?
Possibly. I'm still a big fan of Vardy, even though I lost faith. And I quite like the look of I don't actually know what the official pronunciation is now that you've said something different. Soyuncu, possibly.
It's Soyuncu. It's Soyuncu.
Oh, really?
Soyuncu is how I should be saying it. And there's a big article on the Leicester Mercury about it. It's not.
Okay.
The chew is a U.
Okay.
So yeah, there we go.
Okay, but I'll just call him Chaglar for now. Okay. He's a good price. So yeah, I mean the only thing is that while their fixtures, I think I don't know, they've always been good against the big teams, and I think Man United obviously a little bit rocked by a few injuries here and there. I think they'll definitely miss Wan-Bissaka. Yeah. Spurs and Liverpool as well. I don't know. They're still a little bit awkward for me, that some of their price points. We'll have to see. I mean, I'm going to have a play with it tonight, but I don't know. I feel like I'd be a bit happier waiting a few weeks, maybe. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, well, I'm just going, before we get to the 11:30 team sheets, which is coming up in a minute, I'm just going to read out my team, and then we'll go back to my wildcard team. We can discuss that. So at the moment I have, I'm going to have, because I've only got 30 seconds or so to change it. So this is my team. I have Pope. I have Alexander-Arnold, Luca Dean, Otamendi, Lundstram. Midfield, I've got Salah, Sterling, De Bruyne, Mason Mount. Up front, Pukki, Haller. I'm going for a sort of 4-4-2, 3-5-2 hybrid. So on my bench, I have Henderson. I've got Greenwood, Cantwell, and Soyuncu as well from Leicester. So that's my team. It's hit 11:30. Do we by any chance have the team sheets in for Liverpool, Newcastle?
Yes, we do. And we have some dogs too, which is always great. So the Liverpool team is, if it's loading for me, right. So we've got Adrian in goal. Yeah. We've got a back four: Robertson, Van Dijk, Matip, and Alexander-Arnold. So the usual suspects start in defence. We have got Fabinho, Wijnaldum, and Oxlade-Chamberlain in central midfield, and then we've got Mane and Salah both in the team on the flanks, with Origi leading the line. and Firmino and Henderson on the bench. Now, I just want to point out that in the last few minutes, I think it's an account called FPL Rockstar, I think it was. They actually tweeted basically that exact team. So those of you who are looking for a sequel to Anfield Express, we might have found it, because at 11:21, FPL Rockstar, breaking team news, Liverpool v Newcastle, Firmino and Henderson benched. That's what's happened. And Origi and Oxlade-Chamberlain to start. So well done, that account. I have just followed it in the event that it has an inside track on the Liverpool team. It would be quite useful. The Newcastle team, if anyone's interested, I'm sure Neil probably is somewhere. Dubravka, Kraft, Cher, Lascelles, Dummett, and Willems is the back five. We've got Hayden, Shelvey, and Atsu, I think, as the midfield three, with Almiron and Hoylinton up front. So I think that's 5-3-2. It could, of course, be 5-4-1 because Almiron can play in wide areas, but definitely a back five. The same, very similar setup to what we saw when we went to Spurs. So I haven't really had a chance to talk through my captaincy, but the Newcastle ability to frustrate Liverpool does actually have me a little bit worried today. I know they're missing one or two key personnel, but I don't know. I mean, that set of players is very capable of sitting behind the ball today. So it's going to be an interesting type of game, I think.
Yeah, I'm in two minds about that, but I remember people saying that when Newcastle visited Liverpool last season, they got absolutely hammered. But they were worse, as you point out. They were a team that was less capable of sitting behind the ball, and the current Newcastle setup is slightly more capable, as Steve Bruce attempts the dreaded relegation again. So I'm happy, just before I talk about my wild cards, my new recruit Alexander-Arnold is playing. Surely the spectre of rotation has gone from him now, David. Do you reckon?
Possibly. I mean, it might depend on how this game goes, because I think Champions League coming up. If they 3-0 up, maybe, or something on the hour, maybe he comes off. I just think we've got to see more Champions League. I mean, it's kind of why I'm happy I'm wildcarding. It's one of the few reasons I'm happy that I'm wildcarding this week rather than last week, because I think we'll get a little bit more of an indication of who's going to play in the European competitions. That's for City and for Liverpool. So I don't know. I mean, I guess because I think if we was going to get rotated, maybe this would be the one, because it's hard to really see that they would offer much offensively. But then again, if they're not going to offer much offensively, Newcastle, then you can probably afford to play your wing back, who very rarely actually is in a defensive position. Also, of course, he's on set pieces. Newcastle historically in the last couple of years have been quite bad at defending them. So from a tactical reason, if there was a doubt in Klopp's mind over who to play or manage some minutes, it makes total sense to put him in, because they're going to be camped around that box. They need a good crosser of the ball, and they need someone who's good at set pieces. So I don't think necessarily means rotation is out of the picture. I just think today he's a good tactical pick. So I think we'll have to see still.
I was just trying to get some comfort because I've just got him in. I believe it or not, I don't think I've ever had him before in FPL. I'm trying to think. I've always been a Robertson kind of guy. Wow. Robertson or Van Dijk, but Alexander-Arnold's had in the sky. I'm just going to talk. So my wild card is on the screen now. I've just talked about the players. I've gone for basically safe as houses, boring, dullard, as has been accused. And it's notable that in Sky, I've gone for a completely maverick lineup. I've got Aguero and Aubameyang and those kinds of players, and Pepe as well. But you can sort of be a bit more maverick in there because of the pricing. But if I was a different FPL manager, I'd have gone for a more maverick lineup. I'm opting for balance over points, I'm hoping, and I've tried to get Aubameyang in. I do like the look of him a lot, but it means ditching De Bruyne. So ultimately I was faced with a choice, Aubameyang or De Bruyne. I've gone for De Bruyne. Mason Mount is a player I definitely want from Gameweek 7 onwards. I was umming having Thibaut at Arsenal coming in, also James at Manchester United. But in the end, I've gone for another dullard approach. I've just gone for the more expensive option. It's a transfer I'd probably want to make down the line. I'm hoping to save myself that transfer, and then I can do 2 transfers in a go, mini wildcard, that kind of thing, depending on how the team's set up. I'll go with you first, Simon. What do you think of that setup? Is that, and you can be cruel. I don't mind.
No, I like it a lot. I mean, there's it's almost identical to my team. So, that's not necessarily a good thing. But I think you're right with Mount. As a Chelsea fan, I'm slightly biased, but I think that he's the more nailed on option at the moment, and he's on set pieces and he scores goals.
Yeah.
I think he's a really good choice. To be honest, I mean, I think if I had 2 or 3 transfers, this is probably what my team would look like.
Okay.
And so, I as we discussed, I really like De Bruyne. I think Pope is probably the goalkeeper to have long term. I've got Heaton at the moment, but if I had the opportunity, then I would probably switch out to Pope. So I like it a lot. And as we've been discussing throughout, it's got a lot of nice price points. I suppose a nice variation of price points. If there is a weakness to it, I suppose it's the lack of options on the bench. Really, I mean, you only need to play one of these players.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, that's what I was aiming for. It's basically one slot. There's one slot, and it's going to be filled at the moment by Lundstram, Cantwell, or Sionyu. Greenwood's there. If I can get a point out of him, great. But it's 3. So instead of having to field 2 or all 3 of these types of players, I only have to do 1. And to be honest, I'm pretty happy to field Lundstram some weeks, and I'm quite happy to field Cantwell as a 5th midfielder some weeks. And of course, game week 9, I'm thinking Sionyu is just going to come straight in, and there we go. There's my 4-man back line. That's the theory, anyway. But I'm pleased you said that because we do think quite alike sometimes, and sometimes you need to take things kind of down to the simplicity of the game. And you mentioned about Mason Mount there. He's got good fixtures coming up. He gets assists, corners, set pieces. He's involved. He ticks all of those boxes. So I like that. My one caveat is I've opted for 3-5-2 or 4-4-2 over 3-4-3. So basically, if I want Barnes, one of Haller or Pukki has to go at the moment, or I have to rejig a bit in using 2 transfers. But then I thought, do I really want to structure my whole team around Ashley Barnes, who is a great, ex-Brighton player and a wonderful asset sometimes, but I'm not really sure that I really want to structure my whole team around him. Have you come across that before with your wildcard, Simon, where you've where there's a player you really want and you've ended up kind of restructuring because of it, and then you thought, maybe I've sort of I've ruined my team a bit by doing that. Have you come up with that sort of situation before?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, the amount of times that I've looked at wildcarding and realised that ultimately I'm just reworking my team to try and get one player in. It happens all the time, especially after you get some really explosive score that hurts your rank from a player that you don't have. I mean, I think it happens all the time. I don't think that's what you've done here at all. I think the difference, I suppose, I mean, there's only 2 players difference in your team and my team, and that's 3, including Pope. But you've got Otamendi and De Bruyne starting, and I would have Wilson and Sigurdsson.
Yeah.
So I suppose that demonstrates a little bit that given that Salah and Sterling are almost must-haves, quote unquote, that you're banking a little bit more on De Bruyne getting those points. Not to underestimate Otamendi, but De Bruyne is the bigger bet there, I suppose. So that's it. But I think you've put together a really I hate to use the term, but the apocryphal balanced team with hopefully. Opportunity for points from all over. So.
I start off with a pessimistic view that I'm wrong and I want to run away from them. But if I'm right, well, then that's a nice surprise, and I don't have to run away from them. So I'm trying to run away from anyone I've got in. David, what do you think? Just before we come to your team and also your wildcard plans, what do you think of this wildcard setup?
Yeah, it looks good. I mean, whilst we'll come on to that in a minute. I've got Aguero for this week. I want De Bruyne long term. So yeah, Sterling and De Bruyne for me is the optimum Man City double up. I'm still Otamendi. I totally understand why people were sort of going for him, but I still personally quite like Zinchenko. I know he's a little bit more expensive, but I mean, Man City defensive cover, I think you're still going to need it. A lot of people I've seen people worried that Man City will kind of like miss Laporte, and he's a good player, But I just so the reason people are worried about him not being there is because he's very good for his passing. But before he arrived, Otamendi had more passes than any other player in the whole league, and was it 17, 18?
Yeah.
So Pep has the players to maintain that going, and so you could end up with a situation where Otamendi's getting some bonus points again, because that's what he was like when he was able to get regular starts as the kind of distributor a couple of years ago. So I totally, it's a good idea. And to just echo what Simon says, it looks very balanced, which looks very nice. I like a good balanced team. It sort of satisfies the OCD in my head. It looks very nice.
Yeah, I tried to make it unbalanced. The 0.1% maverick in me tried to get Aubameyang in, and I ended up with all sorts. Basically, I was chipping away at players bit by bit, and soon I was chipping away at 5 or 6 players just to get Aubameyang in. It was what I was talking about earlier about making those plans to accommodate a particular player, and it alters the rest of your team. So
Ryan Fraser, is he? Ryan Fraser's the man you wildcard for.
I wildcarded for Ryan Fraser before, and I think De Bruyne is not the sole reason I wildcarded, but I think looking at Man City's fixtures coming up and the way he's been performing for club and country recently, he is, the centrepiece of my wildcard.
Yeah, 100%. And he was. We set up very similar, I think, at the start of the season, Joe.
Yeah.
Because we both had Vardy.
Yeah.
So we had our premium option, our third premium option up front. So then, it means that to get to De Bruyne, it was like surgery. So, absolutely. Wildcarding for De Bruyne makes total sense. I've been wanting to do it for several weeks, but I've just been trying to put it off. But I can't hold off any longer because his price, by the end of the season, I would be surprised if De Bruyne is not at 11 million because he's so good. We've got to get him on.
I could have got De Bruyne in 2 moves. I could have just had 2 transfers to just do Vardy and a midfielder to De Bruyne and a cheaper striker. It was doable. But then I looked at the rest of my team and I made 10 changes, so that says something. And also I went and ranked my team and the difference between my Game Week 4 side and the wildcard side I've got is immense. So the computer is saying yes there. Let's look at your team now. Now I'm going to read out your team, and you mentioned that you've basically not ruined it, but but you're wildcarding, so you're sort of dead ending it.
Yes, I think that's the better way of putting it.
So you've got Pope in goal. You've got a 4-3-3 setup. Luka Dean, Alexander-Arnold, Lundstram and Zinchenko. In midfield, you've got Salah, Sterling and Norwood. Up front, Pukki, Jota. Someone's still got him. And Aguero. On the bench, you've got Heaton, Campbell, Dendoncker and Gilbert. So, take us through your decision around this team, but then also what you're thinking with your wildcard, because that's the good bit, really. What you're planning to do from Game Week 6 beyond.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to be honest, I didn't think about it too much over the international break because Game Week 4 went so, it was so demoralising. And football players are totally right. When they get a bad result before the international break, it really stinks because then it's all you think about for like the next 2 weeks. So for the first week, I was just like, I don't want to think about it. It went so bad. And then the second week, I didn't have time to because I was just ill. So, it maybe I could have made some better decisions with this if I'd had more time. I don't know. Maybe I'm just making excuses. But with Aguero, obviously, I'm coming in for a bit of stick because I said I wouldn't get him for Game Week 4 because I didn't like him as a long-term option. Because I think once Champions League comes in, then I think, he's going to be a rotation. Rotation risk is the wrong word. Minute management, I think, is what we're going to see again. Because what we saw last year, he was playing like 65 minutes and then Jesus would come on. And we weren't really seeing quite the same thing happen with Sterling. But because I kind of wanted to wildcard anyway, sort of mentioning in there that actually getting De Bruyne was going to be really tough, I just thought, well, because I got Kane, then getting to Aguero is quite easy because I had 2 free transfers. So I thought, okay, I think Aguero is going to do well this week. So let's just get him now. And that's one reason to dead end because I don't really want him long term. I want De Bruyne. So that was one thing. And then the reason the Shota has to stay is because I was hoping I could downgrade him into maybe Jordan Ayew or something, and start Trossard. But then obviously Trossard's out for 3 to 4 weeks. Red flag, so he's got to go.
Yeah.
So then if I'm going to downgrade someone, either downgrade the guy who's not playing or downgrade a guy who's playing up front for a Wolves team that historically has done quite well against Chelsea. Yes, he's not started the season very well, but you could argue maybe he's been a bit knackered and he's just had, mostly 2 weeks off because he hasn't played a great deal in the international break. Norwood, the reason I just needed a 5 million midfielder. Of 5 million midfielders, he created more chances than any of the others. I don't really rate Southampton's defence. He's potentially on Sheffield United's penalties as well. So it's a punt. Basically, it's a dead-ended team. It needs some serious shaking up. And just Aguero. And by the way, I have captained since I sent you that team. I have switched to Aguero for the captaincy just because, I've been sort of talked into it by Simon's sort of logic of. It's a good point about the rotation. Is if we're I thought Sterling. I was insisting that Sterling was the safer bet, but I think he's right. Like Aguero hasn't played any football over the international break, and even though Jesus is around, he has recovered from an injury. So you'd imagine, or hope, and pray that Aguero is going to start and play most of the game. Because actually, last season, Jesus, I think possibly sort of featured a little bit more in the Champions League and perhaps in the Premier League.
I mentioned my Sky team. I've got Aguero, the likes of Sterling, KDB, etc. as well, and Salah, and it's Aguero who's getting the armband. So that's that's my instinct. If I had all of them, and you do as well. So most of them, and so you've seen the light as well. Well done, Simon, for persuading him there.
Don't worry, I'm not going to blame you or anything. I've had people blame me for their own decisions recently, and I will not blame you. It's completely my call. If it goes wrong, it's my fault. It's not Simon.
I just can't believe captaining Aguero against a team with no defence who've just been promoted is going to go wrong.
Well, that's the thing. I actually think that, to be honest, I think Sterling and Aguero probably will. They're both. Surely they only get double-figure hauls. I can't see how they can't, because they're going to have to play a back four with two left backs, a right back, and a central defensive midfielder who against West Ham was dreadful. So 10-0, it sounds stupid, but I just, there's no bus to park. And even if they could park it, look at the stats for the last 4 weeks. They're not very good at that either. So maybe we'll be fine. Hopefully we'll be fine. And long term, I'm not so keen on him, but just, we've been there before. If you know you're going to wildcard because your team needs a shake-up, make a bit of an odd move that perhaps maybe is just going to claw back. Because I lost a lot of ground last week. Maybe it makes a bit of that up.
Yeah, I mean, I lost a lot of ground before I was wildcard, but I knew I was going to wildcard before, a bit like you as well. You've already got it in mind to do that, so you're preparing. And I always think those wildcards, well, that's the plan anyway. Over a few weeks, they should help really, because you're not just panic wildcarding. It's a carefully planned thing. You know you want to do it. You've looked at the fixtures as well. Simon, looking at this team as well, so bearing in mind that David is not going to be having this team beyond this game week as well, what I find interesting is the awfulness of the midfielders currently there. But I have seen some teams, trying to go into that with say Cantwood, or Cantwell and Dendoncker, for example, and they're just some of the names mentioned. But is there any other kind of cheap fifth midfielders that you think we should be mentioning, or is basically Cantwell the best option at the moment, or are there any other names that you're thinking about?
I think around the 6 million. I mean, we've discussed a couple. Pronounce his name like Shabayo. Is one. I'm a bit wary about his sort of nailed onness. I think Cantwell offers so much potential at that price. I mean, he's not to overstate it. He's not going to score sort of massive double-figure hauls consistently throughout the season. But given what he does offer, and also Dendoncker to some extent, he hasn't really done it so far, but he can do it. Given what they offer, I'm not sure that you would necessarily gain a lot more by spending $1 million more or even half that. Right now, so I think those are worth sticking with at the moment as the budget. I mean, somebody might emerge, but I think the fact that we've got so many good mid-price to premium midfielders at the moment, the options. I mean, we haven't even spoken about Spurs and Son. Could easily be the next big bandwagon. If he does well today or in the coming weeks. Pepe is another one. I think it's almost a waste to sort of save money on midfield, and that's also sort of assisted by the fact that there's quite a lot of mid-price defenders and a handful of mid-price forwards and potentially sort of leaning towards budget forwards that are also enabling that. So I'm not personally looking too much in the budget category around midfield at the moment.
Okay, as David said, it's not a permanent thing for him, just for temporary. I just wanted to bring up De Bruyne as well. So David, you're going to wildcard next week. Man City are at home to Watford. They're basically playing Delia Smith and me and my cat this week. So you can't have a Man City defender, Sterling, Aguero and KDB. What's your general thought about the three that you want at the moment?
I'm pretty confident Sterling and De Bruyne is the way to go. Okay. The value that De Bruyne offers is just so good, and he's been really stressing me out for several weeks because, like I said, I just haven't been able to get to him, and in that time he's gone up in price. He looks amazing for the price that he's at. And then I do think that across the course of the season, Sterling's going to play more minutes than Aguero. So, and of course, he's a midfielder, so has the other added advantage of extra point for the goals he scores, extra point for the clean sheets that they'll keep. So that's pretty easy for me. For defence, not too. I'm not really hugely settled on. I've seen a lot of interest in Otamendi, kind of as already mentioned before, but I'm not seeing I'm not seeing a massive reason why I should move off Zinchenko just yet. I know Mendy's sort of coming back, and we've got the Champions League as well. So I don't know. That's the position I'm sort of not really set on, but there's not a massive amount of difference in price. Yeah. And Zinchenko has been offering a little bit more offensively in the last few weeks than he did sort of at the end of last season. So I don't know. We'll see. I mean, he scored 2 goals in international break, didn't he? Which obviously will excite some people, but he was actually playing in central midfield for Ukraine because, I mean, why wouldn't you? If you've got a Man City player in your team, even if he's the goalkeeper, you might as well play him up front. So, yeah, there's things he can offer. I'm not sure. I don't know. The defender I'm not sure on, but the midfield is easy. Sterling and De Bruyne is really easy for me.
The reason I asked that is because Aguero at home to Watford, that looks great, and I'll regret not having it. Does look, yeah. But it's interesting because it's one of those positions that fancy Premier League managers get all the time when you remove a player and get another player in. And when you're on wildcard, how are you, in your soul about removing Aguero before he's at home to Watford?
Yeah, no, I get that, but I think what you have to remember with the wildcard is it's not really about game week 6. It's about game week 6 to game week 21. Okay. And of course, Champions League is going to continue to play a part in that. And yeah, I'm not too worried. I mean, maybe I'll change my mind. I made a last-minute decision today. Maybe I'll change my mind next week. But I can't really look past De Bruyne. I think the other thing, of course, I know it's a new manager. He hasn't had a lot of time to settle in. It's a different squad to what he was used to before. Watford have been another one of these teams historically that have actually conceded a fair few chances from set pieces. So, if I'm moving away from a guy that could only get 60 minutes to a central midfield player who's created more big chances than any other player in the league, he's on set pieces for this team, then, he could get a couple of assists just out of corners. So it doesn't bother me that much. I know what you're saying. If it's normal, because me and you, we're always one of those people that like to remind people, yes, that other player over there does look very attractive, but if you're taking that guy out to get in, then maybe it's a wasted transfer in a normal game week. But just because it's the wild card, it'll probably hurt me if he gets a hat trick or something.
Yeah, no, I'm sure because it's something that will chime with all fantasy. Everyone's thinking through their heads, oh God, remember that time when I removed, and then he scored a hat trick, and I got in so-and-so and got 2 points. Simon, do you agree with that? I mean, we spoke about it earlier as well. Does any that psychology of being a fantasy? I remember, I think it was on this show or another show. You were saying Fantasy Premier League is a game that you play against yourself, and so. Is that one of those moments where the fantasy Premier League managers playing against themselves? They're using that psychology of their perhaps past memories of players they've ditched, and
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I think the real challenge would be if Norwood and Jota smash it this week. And
no, please! I just want them to. I just want them to tick by, like assisty. Just something small. Oh, please, Simon, don't do that to me.
But yeah, I mean, it does definitely because we're sort of very influenced by the most recent events, and so the fact that Aguero, has a good fixture, coming forward. If he's done really well this week, if De Bruyne does really well this week and Aguero doesn't, then it would be really easy psychologically. If it's the other way around, then I think it would be difficult. And I'd be interested to see what happens with De Bruyne more generally, because he's been doing really well so far, and that's very firm in people's minds. And he's been getting double-figure scores, and he's been averaging 9 points a game. But that's going to regress at some point. So unless he scores like 340 points this season, which potentially he could do. In what he's more known for is cropping up with 1 or 2 assists a game, and he's not necessarily getting the double pointers. And meanwhile, there's going to be players in that price range like Son and Pepe and potentially some others that will really smash it. And so what I can see potentially is somewhere down the line, people saying, De Bruyne, he's too expensive for an assist every game, which I think is the wrong way to look at it. I think the right way to look at it with De Bruyne is if you've got him in early, then you stick with him for the season and let it pay off for you over time. But the psychological pressure of seeing a player, or Aubameyang or somebody score a hat trick when De Bruyne is, chipping in with 5-6 points every week, that's the challenge. So I think that will probably start splitting the template up a little bit. I hate to use the word template, but I think that De Bruyne is absolutely the sensible pick to get, and now is the right time to get him in as well.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting point you raised there as well, because you've won it as well. So think about things a little bit strategically as well. So looking down the line about what fantasy managers are potentially going to be thinking down the line. Got another international break coming up in a few weeks, and David's wildcarding next week. I've just wildcarded, so you're already getting an idea of the kind of players that people are interested in, and perhaps and you bring up Pepe there. So Pepe, Son at Spurs as well, and people really love those big double-digit scores. And as you said, KDB traditionally he's sort of like a 5 to 8 point kind of guy, if you get a double-digit score out of him, great, but. And it doesn't look as sexy as Son hammering in a hat-trick.
Especially when you've got Sterling or Aguero in your team already, that you're probably going to captain them over De Bruyne. Most of the time. Rightly or wrongly, I think most people will tend to do that.
Okay, it's probably time for us to call it a halt. Breakfast is starting to turn into lunch, and we've got FPL games to watch. I put up a little plug for the members area just to say that some of the stats that we've been using, my goals imminent table, for example, and various stats to all our videos and podcasts, we get from the members area at Fantasy Football Scout. Do sign up if you haven't already, and if you have signed up, do have a look in, because there's lots of interesting stuff in there. I've particularly been using the Rate My Team tool in there, and luckily I've also phrased that correctly this time. The fixture ticket is also great as well. I've just put up a bit earlier as well the next 6, so we can see why we're talking about Man City a lot, and why be mentioning people like Ashley Barnes and Pepe, because Burnley and Arsenal have great fixtures as well. But for now, Simon and David, thanks so much for joining me, and good luck with the game week.
Thanks, you too.
Cheers, thanks guys.
Bye now.